So, very good. We're going to go ahead and kick things off today. Obviously, this is our third monthly training here, and we're going to keep doing these each month, kind of focusing on a different aspect of Hudu. This monthly training is going to be focused on processes and KBs. Obviously, this is a big topic that we get a lot of questions about. And so it's going to be a really cool one to just get your questions answered and kind of explore these different core functionalities of Hudu. So again, same thing. If you've attended one of our monthly training webinars before, kind of some ground rules we set are just that in this monthly training, we are talking about the processes and KB articles, as well as a couple other things. And we really just want to limit the questions to kind of this monthly training's best practice webinar. We're going to touch on some other things as well. And so if you have questions on features, functionality, all that, feel free to toss them in. We just want to let you know that if you have, feature related questions or anything like that, like feature updates when things are coming or anything like that, we have other webinars coming very soon, actually, where you can get those questions answered. So now that our numbers have kind of filled out, back to introductions. My name's Daniel. I am an account manager here with Hudu, calling in from Denver, Colorado. And Jordan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Jordan Hart. I'm the product manager here at Hudu. I'm calling in from St. Petersburg, Florida, but great to see some familiar names and some new names, and excited to hop into some best practices, success strategies. Hopefully we can try and clear up the KBs and processes as much as possible for you today.
Very good. So yeah, similar to our other monthly training webinars, we'll just briefly touch on our documentation series that we've been in. Most of this time today, we'll be exploring Hudu, going through these core functionality and answering your questions, talking about kind of those hidden gems within these tools. We'll then go through some resources, and obviously Q&A is going to be throughout. Obviously, we're going to have a dedicated time for Q&A, but literally use the chat, use the Q&A. Throughout this entire webinar, get your questions answered, really anything that you are curious about. So just an overview of our documentation series so far, what we've released. We're actually getting close. This is our last monthly training for this first kind of quarter of our documentation series, which has been based on organization and structure of Hudu. So we've actually released at this point 6 blogs, 5-6 blogs, 12 tips and tricks, have multiple downloadable resources. All of these can be found in our resources center, as well as I'm sure if you're kind of active on our Reddit or anything like that, you see those get posted. Same thing with our socials. But yeah, we're pretty much getting ready to wrap up this first quarter and gonna be starting to look forward to our next quarter's topic, which we'll mention a little bit later in this meeting. So at this point, we are going to jump into the platform. I kind of have obviously a little bit of an agenda for exploring these processes, KB articles, and other hidden gems throughout these features. That being said, again, we want this to be an interactive experience. If you have questions throughout, go ahead and ask them. We'll stop what we're doing at that point, and we can kind of touch on these questions as they come up. Jordan's going to be posting some things in the chat as well for you, some resources and links, and obviously posted our email. So again, we want you to have lots of resources and everything you need for these items. So I think the best place to start is we're going to start off with exploring processes here. Processes tend to be something that a lot of our customers really heavily utilize, and some don't utilize at all, whether that be because they put everything in their KB section, or whether that be they use another checklist tool, whatever it may be. We want to kind of go through processes today and explain how you can really utilize them to benefit you and your customers through those standard operating procedures. So to start out, I'm just going to do a quick high-level overview of our processes section. If you've been to a demo recently, then you've probably already kind of seen this, but if you've been using Hudu for years, then maybe it'll be a good refresher for you on kind of the full functionality of the processes tool. So essentially with processes, what we can do is we can start things at the global level. This is true for many things in Hudu, and what makes it kind of such a cool tool is a lot of these items you can start globally and then bring them down to the customer level as needed. Again, that standardization is a huge thing, and that's very true for these processes as well. Whether you have processes for, new computer, offboarding, onboarding, new user, all of these different items and many others, each of your companies, you have your ways of doing these. You complete your standard operating procedures in a certain way, 90% of the time. So because of that, it's the best way to do this is to standardize it as a global process template. Once they're standardized throughout, now let's say we jump into this company and we need to activate one of these processes. So we'll go ahead, we'll hit new, we'll create from the template, and that's going to go ahead and show up in this root list view here. So let's say I just activated this process here. And again, we can just pretend that none of these steps are checked off. We've just activated it. Now, let's say there's specific items that maybe need to be changed for this distinctive process. Maybe we want to add in who the new computer burn-in is for. So maybe for John Smith. And we add that in there. And now we know if I would have hit save that this process is going to be the new computer for John Smith. Maybe we need to edit a task. Again, we can easily do this because these processes that we've standardized started at that global level, and now they're down to the company level. Within each process here, we can check steps off as they are completed, which updates the progress. We can have notes for task completion. We can assign users, due dates, priority levels, and writing completion notes once a task is finished. Another really cool thing that a lot of our customers will heavily utilize is this copy completed tasks button. So copy completed tasks can be a great way to keep an internal note or log of your process completion. This is a very popular way that our customers will associate processes with tickets coming in through your PSA. I know a best practice that I've heard of is a ticket comes into your PSA. Let's say for it's this new computer. You go into Hudu, you start this process, you work through this process, completing all these tasks that are standardized for you. Once they're completed, you copy all of your completed tasks, paste that into that ticket. It'll timestamp each task that was completed, show when they were completed, and all of the task names and everything that you need for them. And that again serves as a great internal note for that ticket completion. That's one way that I've seen kind of that connection between your PSA system and your processes in Hudu. Another cool thing, which if you are not utilizing or know about, you can send real-time status updates of your processes. This can be a great way to establish another touch point with your customers, letting them know exactly what you are doing for them. So say you have a manager of a company, or again, maybe somebody submits a ticket and wants to know how this process is coming along. You can easily just send them this process link, and this will live update as steps are completed, giving whomever you send this to a true live view into this specific process. So again, can be a really great way to just keep that connection with your customers, establish another touch point. And again, they're actually seeing, okay, they actually are doing all of this stuff for me. Again, that can just be a great way to kind of keep that connection strong. So that's kind of the high level overview of how processes can be utilized in Hudu. Now, a couple other things that I like to mention. So I mentioned this earlier about, first thing I mentioned was starting off as these global process templates. Where we can do this is we can go into our admin section and into process templates. And here's where we can create all of these process templates that we want to use and standardize across our entire Hudu instance. The benefits of creating things at this global level, again, this can be done for password folders in Hudu, processes in Hudu, KB templates in Hudu, obviously asset layouts. And it's such a strong benefit to ensure that if you have a new tech that comes on, on Monday, and you need them to be able to go complete a process for you, you have the way that you want this to be completed, done, and laid out for you right here every single time. And you can ensure those reproducible results throughout each SOP that is completed. Another cool thing, which we did have in one of our tips and tricks on this as well, but is going to be In Hudu, you can mark things as onboarding processes. So say we have onboarding a new client as a process here. As I go into this global process template, you'll see one of these buttons is mark and unmark as onboarding processes. What this is going to do is if this is marked as an onboarding process, essentially it is going to show up on each of your company's dashboards when a company is created, and they won't go away here until the process is completed. So it can be really great, you need to onboard a new company. If you have 6 processes marked as onboarding processes, as soon as that company is added into Hudu, you see those onboarding processes directly laid out for you. You can make sure that those items are being completed. And again, you're making sure that that onboarding of your new client or customer is exactly how you want it to be. Obviously, onboarding processes are very useful in terms of marking as an onboarding process. Obviously, offboarding processes are something that also probably many of you utilize. And so I did just want to point out our resource for that. We did come out with a resource which has screenshots of some example onboarding, offboarding processes that we have. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind actually linking that kind of tip and trick that we had for those onboarding, offboarding processes. And if you want to go through those, obviously it's a great place to start. Again, company to company, you're going to do things that are different. We just kind of wanted to get you at least a starting point or a brainstorming point of how you could standardize these onboarding, offboarding processes, and then again, marking those as onboarding within Hudu to make sure that they're all being completed. Last thing I will kind of touch on for processes, and then I'll open it up for Jordan if he wants to add anything in. One thing I talk to a lot of customers within Hudu once they're kind of setting up the tool, and these templates tend to be confusing at the beginning and kind of how they work and the point of them. So you can think of the best way to think of it, in my opinion, is when I'm adding a new process. Typically, I'm going to start it at that global level. Once I activate it from that global template, it then shows up in my root view here. These process templates here are all going to be those company specific, almost sub process templates. So if I wanted, a new computer burn-in process, and you can see I do have this here as a company specific template, the main benefit of these here, there's really two. One, as I click into one of those boxes, I can see all of the processes that have been started on an asset for installing Windows 11 for this process. I kind of gave away the other major benefit, but it is that these templates are how you're able to start processes directly on an asset. So let's say I need to start a new computer burn-in on a desktop. This just, we just added this desktop, or it just sunk in, or whatever it may be. I can go in and add a new process directly here. And these are those templates that I just saw. We can start the process directly on that asset. So that way, when I'm in that asset itself, I can see the processes that are currently going on for it. And the same can be said when I'm in these template boxes themselves. Clicking into that, I can see what desktops we have this process currently going for. So hopefully that makes a little more sense. Jordan, that's kind of all I wanted to touch on with processes. If you have any additional kind of hidden gems or tips and tricks that you want to talk about, that would be great at this point. And again, if anybody has any questions on processes, how to use certain processes, really any of the core feature functionality, feel free to ask those questions. We're more than happy to help with any of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great introduction and overview of processes, Daniel. I think the only thing I'd really add is kind of reiterating what you said on both child processes. So adding processes to a particular device and utilizing those client templated processes is a great way to get your technicians, potentially new technicians, up to speed and ensure that they're performing the correct steps on every single device that gets added into Hudu, device contact, really any asset that gets added into Hudu. Number two would be, again, kind of reiterating, utilize the global process templates. They're a great way to save time when you're creating processes. even if a particular process doesn't relate exactly to every single client, you can kind of get the bare bones of that process and create it at a global level. And then at the client level, you can further customize that process, and you at least save that intro step of all of those bare bones steps that may have been needed.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. So yeah, and obviously I'm gonna move into kind of the KB section things, and we'll come back and reiterate kind of the connection between both after we go over KBs. That being said, if you have questions about processes or anything that comes up while I'm talking about KBs, again, feel free to ask them. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so always feel free to get in your questions in. I'm gonna move to the KB section now. And again, kind of highlight the KBs and all of the hidden gems within that. And then we'll go ahead and kind of bridge the two together following that. So same thing. I think that giving a little brief overview and kind of quick high level overview of the KB section can be helpful, especially for those customers that we have in here that I know have been using Hudu for many years at this point. So a good quick refresh can always be helpful. So the KB section is basically going to serve as your central repository for storing and organizing all of your documents, articles, and how-to guides for this company. Basically, you can set up folders and subfolders for KB organization. And when I am, apologies, went one step too fast there. Folders, subfolders for KB organization. I obviously have all of my articles here in my root list view as well. When I'm adding a new article, just like with processes, I can standardize the way my articles are written by creating KB templates and using that for some or all of my articles. Jumping into an example article here, we will have our table of contents for easy navigation to any information you may need. If you're using scripting, it'll show what's being used as well as the ability to copy it to your clipboard to retain the formatting. And each KB article does have a public share link here as well. The editor is going to be a WYSIWYG editor. You can change things such as the headers, which are what populates the table of contents for the article, adding in block quote and inline code where needed, as well as callouts like this danger callout you see above. Once I finish my edits, I can choose a folder for this article to be placed into or just simply publish. Let's see, some items that I typically get asked about a lot for the KB section are global, client, internal KBs. Where do I store these? So, and what I mean by that is each client you create, we see this here with Atlas Inc., will have its own KB section. So each company that is created has its own KB. You also have a global KB for articles that make sense to have across all clients. That's typically what I say for that. And then one recommendation we always have is creating your own internal company in Hudu. That's where you can store all of those internal KBs and other information. Typically, what we like to say is the whole point of a documentation platform is you want your text to be able to easily find whatever they need to, quickly and efficiently. And so I get that question a lot. Should I use global KB? Should I use internal KB? My answer typically is what's going to be the easiest for your text to find? Do you store all of your information, passwords, processes, assets, all of that in your own internal company? If so, it may make sense to also store your KBs in that own internal company. So that way, everything is in that one place for you. If you don't have an internal company, then obviously it may make sense to store those internal KBs within the global KB section. But again, the global KB is really that place that it's really articles that make sense to have across your entire Hudu instance, across all companies that you have. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but KB templates can be huge. You can make sure, and same thing that we touched on with processes, you can standardize the way these articles are written. So if you want that same look, feel, structure to every single article you have, utilizing your own, branding and way of doing things, then set up these templates and standardize those articles exactly that way. We have a lot of companies who really like to utilize this KB template feature, and it can be definitely a game changer when writing your KB documentation. Same thing I mentioned with processes. You have a new tech that comes in and they need to write a new article in Hudu. Having that standardized and structured format can be huge for getting them onboarded quickly to doing that task. Um, Another tool I like to touch on that I think is kind of a hidden gem is the KB draft and autosave feature. And of course, I have this one drafted, but let's go into the how to write a KB because I know there's nothing in here. So actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and start a new article from scratch here. And let's just title this monthly training example. So let's go ahead and create the new article. So now here we're in our article, and let's go through and say, this month's monthly training, dot, 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 dot. So you'll see here that now that I start typing, we have a option of publishing, save draft, and closing. And through a couple more seconds here, you will notice that there will also be an autosave feature that populates. Hopefully quickly here as I'm typing this in, but essentially this is going to auto save for you going throughout this, which can be really nice for, keeping articles in this draft mode. As I'm going through, as I'm doing the writing in the article here, making changes, I'll have that auto save populate for me. And then I can also save items as drafts, as you can see here. So I just save the item as a draft. Now, as I, go back out, let's just go back to my KB section, you'll see that this labels it as a draft article. This can still be, flagged. It can be whatever, I want. If I want to flag it and have somebody review it, that's a very common, popular thing with keeping articles in draft mode, flagging it for needs review. So one thing in Hudu you can set up is these flag types. One flag type could be needs review. You could flag a draft as needs review, then you could have your, admin or whoever reviews those articles for publishing, go in, review it, remove the flag, and publish it when it's ready. Now that this article is published, we see that that draft went away, and we see that it was created right now. And here's our information we have. Again, as I keep typing here, I can save the draft again. I already have my published version, obviously, but if I wanted to save it as a draft, I can do so, throughout as changes need to be made to this article. Jordan, you want to expand on anything there or anything that I kind of anything you think should be added in addition there?
No, I think that was a pretty good coverage of the KBs and a lot of the things that you can do. I will interject with one of the questions that just got asked. Is there any plans to integrate Hudu KBs with Halo PSA, either in export or import or sync? So this is something that our team has talked about. I unfortunately don't believe we have that on our roadmap, but I do believe I've seen it on our feature request page. What I would recommend is going ahead and upvoting that feature on our feature request page. And then in terms of kind of having KB articles inside of Halo PSA right now, we do actually have, it was released earlier this year. It's a extension of our browser extension, but it's called Hudu Assist, and it does actually allow you to view and search your KB articles from Hudu while you're within Halo PSA. It also works with a couple other integrations as well, which would be Synchro, Ninja, and Autotask. And then it also provides some additional information from Hudu inside of Halo PSA. So that could be when you're looking at a ticket, you could go ahead and search your KB articles or even passwords. If you're looking at a device within Halo, it'll pull all of the related items. Um, uh, Glenn, I'd have to check on that. He's saying it doesn't seem to work with self-hosted Halo PSA. It should work with custom domains of Halo PSA, and we have seen it set up with self-hosted. I'll have to check on that. If you don't mind sending me an email, jordan@hudu.com, though, I can go ahead and follow up and get you instructions on how to set that up.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. That's great. And yeah, for anybody that doesn't know what Hudu Assist is or the capabilities of that, Maybe if you also want to just link, our support guide to Hudu Assist in there, because it's something that us at Hudu, we're super excited about. The functionality people really, really enjoy using Assist, kind of bridges that gap between your PSA or RMM and your documentation platform, as Jordan was saying. So yeah, Jordan, if you want to, put in the link to Hudu Assist, just in case anyone is unfamiliar with kind of what we've been doing with that. It's super cool, and we only plan to improve it, bring it to more integrations throughout the next, iterations of our browser extension. Couple other things that I wanted to touch on with our KB section. One of those being our more options here. So this is something that I usually don't touch on in, demos or webinars or anything, but a lot of really, nice features that you have here. So first of all, you can favorite items. If you don't know what favoriting does, it'll add them to your dashboard. Archiving items, each company has its own museum, which just acts as an archive to store the old and inactive documentation for that company. So you can always archive these items. Flagging, I mentioned this earlier, a very popular flag, as I click flag here, would be needs review. You can set up all of these flag types throughout, and it's very easy. If I want to flag this as needs review, I can do so. I can say draft created and go ahead and flag this. And what you'll see here is this is now flagged as needs review. As I go back into our KB article, you'll see we have this flag here for how to update Docker Engine on Ubuntu. If I want to remove the flag, I simply go in, remove it, and there we go. So flagging's super popular with that. Another popular item is going to be this change permissions and view current access. I like to show this off, and obviously, if you haven't noticed or didn't know, we did just release a new update that started our overarching permissions overhaul. And so a couple of these things have actually really the change permissions has changed briefly within this section here. So if I want to go see, or if I want to go change the permissions for this article, here I have all of my groups that I've created in Hudu, and I can easily block groups. The kind of one of the changes that was made from this update is I can also now view who currently has access directly from this page. Say I click view who currently has access, you can see I can see everybody that has access here. Now let's go ahead and block a couple of these groups here. Now let's go ahead and view who currently has access. You'll see that we have some X's across some of these people. They can now no longer currently see this article. So pretty cool. You can highlight permissions from a article, password, asset, whatever it may be, directly while you're in it just by using this tool here. If I just want to see who has current access, I can just do that as well. One of the other cool features is I can lock editing of this article. So as an admin, if I hit lock editing, then obviously no one else would be able to edit this article. And then this is kind of moving items as well, can be super valuable, is moving this article to a global KB, making it a global template, as I showed earlier with our KB templates, and changing the company that this article applies to. The other popular thing that I see a lot and show a lot is adding expiration dates for our articles. So if I hit, right now I actually have an expiration date on this and you can see that, but here's where I can add and remove expiration dates for my articles. You can see that this article expires 40 days from now. Can be a great way to set up those, auditing and article tracking within Hudu. If I want to audit articles every 6 months, set up the expiration for 6 months from now. Once that expires, I can get the alert for it and make sure that we can go and audit those articles. Last thing that I wanted to touch on with the KB section is going to be our open AI integration, which we also did just add the ability for Azure AI as well. So if I hit edit here, you'll see we have generate AI response. This is going to be our open AI integration, and one that I think a lot of our customers maybe don't know about as much. But for this integration, it's essentially just AI, it'll essentially write your articles for you, kind of similar to like a, what chat GPT would do, but it'll do this actually inside of Hudu. So if I search how to write a KB article, and then I go ahead and search, this is going to generate a search for me, and it's going to write this article response for me here. And then I can use this within my articles. Again, we just added the support for Azure AI on this as well in our most recent update that came out. But here we have our article. Let's say I want to use this. I'll just simply copy the response, go ahead, paste this in here, and now I have my how to write a KB article. So a pretty cool integration if you've never kind of thought about using this, or if you figure that this would be super beneficial to you. Again, you can just go into our admin side, our integration side, and here's our OpenAI integration. As I mentioned, Azure AI got added to this in our most recent update, but it's really just for that AI-assisted documentation writing directly within Hudu. Jordan, I believe that's really all I had for the KB section of things. Anything that you wanted to add or touch on with the KB section side?
Yeah, so just one question that we did get on Reddit a couple days ago, right after we posted this, was how do you add pictures in between numbered or bulleted lists? So we can go ahead and hit Shift Enter when we're writing a KB article. That'll space that bullet point down and allow us to add pictures. One of the issues that they were running into is as soon as they add a picture, it's restarting that numbered list. I guess with bullets, it probably should still work with adding that picture, but with numbered lists, not having to restart that numbered list back at one, you can go ahead and enter that space by using Shift Enter. Some other things, I guess just touching on that templates, and one of the best practices that I've seen, create a template for each type of article that you're going to have within, or as many that you can think of. Obviously, documentation is a living, or should be thought of as a living, breathing thing. So I'm sure you'll always be adding more, but create a template for your how-to articles, your reference documentation, anything like that that you think your technicians will use. That way you can help save time for them. Some other cool things that I've seen a lot of our clients utilize is anchor tags for helping technicians navigate through their knowledge base articles. Essentially, what that is when you use a header within the WYSIWYG editor, it'll go ahead and apply a unique URL that you could then link to at the start of the article so that they can quickly navigate throughout the article. We do have that automatically generated table of contents that appears on headers, but this is just another great way to help with navigating through potentially longer articles. Let's see. In our last blog post, I believe it was the advanced documentation tips. There's also quite a few really neat additional tips for the KB. Some of those would be utilizing article callouts. It's one of the forgotten things within Hudu, but you can add callouts to pull important information to the front and kind of make it super visible for your technicians, whether that's a note that you need within the article, a danger warning that you need within the article. A new feature that was added just a few updates ago would be the accordion. So creating FAQs or an FAQ document for your organization is super easy utilizing those accordion formatting. And then keyboard shortcuts. I'll go ahead and link over. So we utilize TinyMCE for this WYSIWYG editor. I'll go ahead and link over the shortcuts that you can use. They can help speed up writing documentation quite a bit. There's a super long list of keyboard shortcuts that you can utilize. Again, that'll be coming from the TinyMCE directly. The keyboard shortcuts that are built in there. Other than that, I just recommend, making your knowledge base articles as interactive as possible. It helps with reading comprehension with your technicians. If something's, a long wall of text, it tends to get a little bit boring and harder to read for technicians. So adding, external content, embedding those into your articles, such as maybe a lucid chart, a Tango diagram, draw.io. Those can really help with the overall clarity of documents and make it easier for your technicians to kind of take over and learn that information. Other things, the last thing, the Tiny MCE editor or that WYSIWYG editor has a ton of really neat features like code editing for adding code, call outs, a bunch of different things that I would definitely recommend utilizing, as it can, again, make your knowledge base articles a little bit easier to read, and it can really help with technicians deciphering that information. I believe that's pretty much it. But if any questions do pop up on utilizing that, questions about the editor, uh, please feel free to shoot those over. Um, we'd be happy to answer those.
Perfect. Jordan, I do think we have a question here on, can you have AI documentation formatted to use your template?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In order, you would have to create the template first, and then you could utilize the AI to generate sections within that. There's not currently a way to tell OpenAI that you want to utilize, one of those templates exactly. You'd have to create that template, start from that template, and then utilize OpenAI to fill in the sections, but it can't generate the template itself. We got another question. Is there a way to preview a document before publishing it? There isn't a way to preview the document or the document before publishing. There is like Daniel mentioned, a draft feature, so it won't publish the document. You could, I believe it saves, I want to say every 90 seconds, and it goes into a draft status. But if you're talking about kind of the quick share links, there's not really a way to preview those prior to publishing. But that's also just creating a link for you, and it wouldn't be shared elsewhere until you go ahead and share that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Another question that we get asked very frequently is when to use processes versus KB articles. Another, now that I'm kind of going through this as well, another resource that I definitely recommend checking out is, we did just host a AMA, Ask Me Anything, with Amanda LeChapelle on Reddit. There's a lot of really good questions and answers coming from somebody who has been using Hudu for many years about organizing and structuring your documentation using KBs and processes. So I highly recommend checking out that AMA. Jordan just went ahead and linked it in the chat. There's a lot of really good information there in there for you as well. But the way I typically talk about it is, processes are going to be served as your actionable items. Your standard operating procedures that you're going to go in there and you're actually going to go through a list of tasks that you are completing while you are doing this. Your KB section is more so served as that central repository of knowledge. So I need to figure out, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this means. That's where you should store these KB articles. Again, ensuring that any of your techs can go in here and increase their knowledge on the topic that they are trying to. Um, Again, a lot of the times there can be some overlap with these. There definitely can, where it may make sense to even link a process and a KB article, because as you're going through a process, maybe one of the steps is, how to set up a WatchGuard user or something like that, or setting up the WatchGuard user, whatever it may be. You can link that KB article within that process task itself. Again, making sure as you're going through, you're completing these tasks, but maybe you need to find the knowledge on that. That's where you could link that KB article in there. So again, I think of processes as more of like, you're going through this and you are actually completing these steps, going through. Obviously, the other benefit of processes is that they're trackable. So items that are those SOPs that, your manager, you want to be able to track your technicians completing these rather than just reading through a KB article and doing this. These processes, you could actually go through, check things off. Your management can go through, see that these tasks are getting completed. You can establish that touch point with your customer. Again, it's kind of like some of that other functionality that makes processes so powerful. Jordan, anything you want to add in on that? And I know we have a couple questions in here as well.
No, I think you covered that pretty well. One of the questions we did get though is why don't you implement a prop integration between KB and processes? So we do have quite a few plans to enhance the functionality of processes itself. I'm not quite sure if we have an integration or a better linkage system in plan for KBs and processes, but processes themselves are going to be going through a pretty big overhaul. And we've talked about quite a few things that we want to include in that. And that'll probably be about the start of next year. And those, we really feel that processes are an extremely powerful part of Hudu, and we'd like to be into them to be integrated into more parts inside of Hudu, but also more parts within your daily workflow. So we'll be taking into account a lot of these features that have been requested on our roadmap. So I'd highly recommend, if you have any features that you think would be really neat within processes, make sure those are on our roadmap, upvote them if they already exist. That way we can gather all of those when we do our process overhaul and really make these an extremely powerful tool, or even more powerful than they are currently.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been using Hudu for years or just recently, I'm sure you know that we're very customer focused with our development cycle. That roadmap is typically where we get almost all of our ideas for what we want to update and improve. So, your feedback is awesome. I'm pretty sure, was it our first monthly training webinar? Somebody shot us an idea of what they wanted to see in the product, and we added that to the release, and it was released a week or two later. And so, items like that and your feedback is extremely valuable. So anything that you ever have, submit it on that feedback page, submit it to our support team, email Jordan or I. We're completely available and would love to hear, anything that you have. And then, Kevin, in terms of the recording of the webinar, it'll get sent out. We'll also have it, in our Reddit, in our resource center. We'll make sure that there's plenty of ways that you can view this recording, but it should be getting sent out to everyone that attended today as well. So.
Yeah, and we've got another question. How do processes, which are global processes but vary a little bit per customer? I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but one thing to do is create those at that global level, like you kind of mentioned. When you're within a specific company, go ahead and start from that global process template. So, and then convert those to templates so that you can utilize for the specific company. Once you go ahead and create from that global process template, you can edit this to be a little bit more specific to, in this case, this Atlas Company Inc. That way it applies to just this one. But creating it at that global level allows you to save quite a few times with maybe those steps that do apply to every single company. That way you can have those specific ones, but also save the time by utilizing the templates.
Yeah, that's exactly. Just to expand on that, that's exactly right. The global templates, obviously, they are your time savers. If you go ahead and complete a onboarding, 80% of the time the same every single time, well, hey, that's now 80% less work that you have to add into a process. What you can go in here, and essentially what Jordan mentioned, when those are activated or created from the template, they're their own process now. They're no longer a template. These in this list root view, I can go in here and start 10 processes of onboarding a new client from this template. and all 10 will show up in this root view here for me. I can then go in and instead of onboarding a new client, just call it the client's name. Or in your case, like you said, maybe Atlas Inc. has a few things different. Just go ahead and make it that company template, and then I can just add it, activate it on our assets as soon as we need to.
And Misha, just for the second part of the question on the bug, I believe it has been fixed. I do remember that a ticket like that coming in a few, well, I don't know how a while ago. And I do believe it's been fixed. I've been working with processes quite a bit this week, and I haven't noticed that. But if you do notice that, please submit a bug ticket for us so we can take another look. But yeah, as far as I know, that has been fixed.
Awesome. Um, So last thing that I'll mention really with this processes and KB stuff, and then Jordan, I'm gonna shift it over to you for a quick, 5 minutes of the Magic Dash tip, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. So last thing I wanted to mention, and Jordan, if you sorry to keep having you link things, but if you want to link the naming standards folder structure resource. I just wanted to highlight again, we had this training last month for naming standards, folder structures, all of this. But I just wanted to show it again because it definitely applies to your KB documentation as well. One kind of best practice hidden gem that we've heard and seen is using like those numerical naming standards that correspond to departments or sites or really whatever you want it to be. And that's kind of an example of this here. Maybe you have 00 admin, 01 finance, 02 marketing, 03 sales, etc. And you can do this throughout Hudu in general, having these numerical naming standards that correspond to each department. Again, I just wanted to show this off just at the end real quick, just because it definitely applies to our KB section, like we've been talking about. Jordan, I'm going to shift it over to you now to talk a little bit about basically. So, this monthly training has corresponded to 2 blogs and 4 tips and tricks. Now, 3 of the tips and tricks were all on this KBs processes side of things. One of them was on advancing your documentation. That was kind of our blog that corresponded to Magic Dash, custom CSS, and other tips like that. So I'm just going to have Jordan quickly take you through just a little bit of that tip. Go ahead and link it in the chat for you as well if you haven't seen it. Because we also believe, like we've talked about with processes, that the Magic Dash and these items are also one of the largest benefits that you can have in Hudu. Jordan, I'll push it over to you now to kind of go through this, and obviously let me know if you want me to navigate to any other page here in Hudu.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Daniel. So I did just send another link in the chat. That is that blog article on advancing your documentation. It just includes some useful tips on kind of some of the higher level things that you can do within Hudu. Like Daniel mentioned, Magic Dash and the API is one of those items. I did actually pull in quite a bit of the information on KBs that we have, and I already talked about that earlier. The article callouts, the shortcuts, embedding items, all of that can be found within that article there. But to talk on the Magic Dash and the API a little bit, unfortunately, that would take me hours to go through some of the possibilities that you can go through with the Magic Dash because it really is endless. Hudu has a very vast library of things that you can do with the API. You can find all that information in the admin API and then the API documentation. One of those being the Magic Dash, though, and that just allows you to pull information, client information up front and center onto a client dashboard. So, like Daniel was showing off just a second ago, those dashboard widgets can pull from other companies. You can embed diagrams into them. You can embed customer reports into them. You can have them link outside of the organization. This just allows kind of a hub for your technicians. So whenever they go to a single or whenever they visit a company, they have a lot of that information right in front of them. Some other really cool things that you can do with, say, the API, and one kind of best practice that I think is really helpful is generating a table of contents from all of the articles within your Hudu environment and generating a single article that contains all of that. That way, your technicians always know if they can't find anything, they have a reference article to go ahead and link to the correct article. Maybe they're looking for how-tos. Maybe they are looking for reference documentation. The API script can go ahead, scrub all of the articles that you have from within your Hudu instance, generate a new article with links to all of the other ones. That script is linked in that advancing your documentation article, so you can see exactly how you can do it. But that's just one of the many things that our community has come out with, and they're really neat with the API, the Magic Dash, to really advance your documentation to the next level and allow your technicians, or really provide your technicians, which with as much opportunity to succeed and find information as possible. Like Daniel mentioned, that article does include a few other things. The API stuff. It includes some advanced things for the KB, and then it also includes kind of customizing your environment even more. From the admin design section, you can go ahead and customize a lot of things, like how forms will look when you're entering information, the size of information. You can customize the Magic Dash colors. If you want, yellow to appear with a warning, you can go ahead and do that. Maybe you have ConnectWise tickets coming up on their due date or their answer by date. You could go ahead and shoot a Magic Dash widget, turn it orange when it hits 5 days, 6 days from that expiration date, or even a few hours. That way, again, your technicians have kind of a single view and have a really easy time finding that information, staying on top of things. We've got a couple questions on that. I imagined a couple questions would come up. So can the Magic Dash pull data from Sophos Central API? Misha, I believe so. I haven't seen their API, but if they're utilizing a RESTful API, it should be able to pull things, and you'd be able to push that to the Magic Dash or to asset layouts, build assets within that. So that would really depend on their API. It would be possible from the Hudu side, as long as they do have API documentation to do that. Can it pull stuff from 365 tenants? Yes, absolutely. We do have a 365 integration kind of pre-built. There's also a CIPP integration that was released from CIPP or CyberDrain that pulls information. And then there are a few community scripts circulating in regards to 365, and even pushing it to the client dashboard and those Magic Dash widgets. Last question on that one was, is there a marketplace for scripts and stuff? We can link over a few places that community scripts live. Our Reddit is a great place where people kind of post any community scripts that they have. And then actually it is going to be one of our objectives coming up is to kind of create a more central community where you can find that script library, as well as a bunch of other resources that really are community built. But we'll hopefully have that pretty soon at that central location. Got another question. Is there a way to have themes/formatting in tables that is more than just color the whole table? For example, have the rows or columns alternate colors. I do believe so. I don't think I have, or I don't have that CSS off the top of my head, but I do believe I've seen that posted to our channel on how they were able to alternate. I think they just did white and like a light gray on those tables. But I'll go ahead and try and find that. If you want to shoot me an email, jordan@hudu.com, I can follow up if I find anything. Are there any plans to add tabs into the documentation? Ryan, would you mind expanding on that? Are you talking with the KB articles, or like asset documentation itself? Kevin's got a question. Can Magic Dash pull ConnectWise open projects? Um, I believe it would be able to. That again, that would kind of depend on what abilities the ConnectWise API gives you access to. I know it can allow you to get open tickets, solve tickets, overdue tickets, things like that. I'm not familiar enough to know whether they'd allow you to pull open projects. But in terms of the Hudu side, if that is if that's able on the ConnectWise side to actually pull that, then yeah, you should be able to pull that into a Magic Dash widget. Thanks, Ryan, for the clarification. Yes, in the KB articles, unfortunately, I don't know if that's something on our roadmap. I would have to check. Again, we're utilizing TinyMCE for that editor. I'd have to check if that's a possibility on their side. If it is, then it's definitely a possibility that we could add that in. But that's kind of our limiting factor there is if it's a feature for TinyMCE, then we can typically get it into the Hudu editor. If it's not, that's going to be quite a bit tougher for us to pull that in. But I'll go ahead and check if that's a functionality, and then add it to an internal feature request if that's possible. Daniel, I think you're talking, but you are muted right now.
Yeah, thank you. I was just saying, I went back into the slides. I didn't even realize we were at time. I just kind of looked at the time here and saw that we were 2 minutes from the hour. So jump back in real quick to the slides. Obviously, we just kind of went through our Q&A. Big thing coming soon is I know a very popular event that we do is our quarter recap webinars. This upcoming Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Mountain Time will be our quarter 3 recap. We'll go over everything that we just released. We obviously had a big release this week. We'll go over all of those items. We will go over obviously any questions you have. That's a great time to get kind of your feature requests and stuff like that in. And then another big thing is we'll introduce next quarter's topics. So obviously we kind of are wrapping up here with our organization and structure topic. And we have a lot of cool things planned. In addition, the other, nice thing is if you have specific kind of overarching topics that you would love for us to cover, please feel free to let us know, whether that be sending us an email, going through support, sending it in the chat here, bringing it to the quarter 3 recap webinar, or emailing Jordan and I. Really, it's great to hear. And again, we're very customer focused with this, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to truly benefit you. With that will obviously come more blogs, tips and tricks, training sessions, all through that next quarter's topic. Oh, I didn't know we had 2 from Germany as well. Yeah, no problem at all. Happy to help today, and thank you so much for joining, Micah. Again, just where to go for help. I show this off a lot, but support, contact us. Our communities are great resources for really any questions. And if you are a part of our Reddit, you'll see that if you go ahead and ask a question, you'll get, 10 responses very quickly to that. So can't recommend that enough. Keep up with us. Again, we just released an update a couple days ago. We send out those, releases and latest news through the blog as well as through our socials. So however you want to keep up with us, you're attending today, so I imagine you already do keep up with us. But thank you all so much for joining. We are literally at 12:01 or wherever you're joining from. We're at 01 right now. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everyone again for joining. We love to do these monthly trainings. Jordan and I have a great time just interacting with you and kind of talking about these best practices. So thank you again. More than happy. If you have any other questions, send me an email, send Jordan an email. Jordan, you want to close us out today?
Yeah, just thanks again, everybody, for joining. It's been a great time answering the questions. If any more do pop up, again, feel free to shoot us over an email. Email us at support. We're always happy to answer as much as we can. Thanks, everybody. Bye.